All right. Welcome back. It's been a few weeks hiatus we took. Saranac Lake Effect Show. We are back for our latest episode. We are both back in town. Both of us left for the school spring break period. And we felt like it would be appropriate to spend an episode talking about that and a few different, I'm not going to say concerns, but different issues around the spring break, how it's run, and what it's like to be around here when spring break is in session. Lots of folks aren't here. So good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. I don't think we thought about what we would do at spring break when we got to this point.
No,
so we did take a break.
We did take a break. We briefly thought of trying one remote, but I think we
just
both
didn't
wanted
happen.
to just unplug.
So we hope we didn't lose all 15 regular listeners. But I have had people really excited to find out that they could follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah,
so we're really excited about that. And it sounds like other folks are too, because they're more used to those apps and things like that.
Exactly. So that'll be huge for us. Maybe get us to 40 followers.
Right.
But just when we get on all those servers, we decide to take a 2-week break.
Right.
But oh well, we're back, and I don't anticipate any big breaks again for quite a while. So
we're in it to win it.
We are. You've told me we have several guests lined up.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. And so as we're doing beforehand, we're going to try to keep it brief, keep the episodes definitely under 30 minutes. And so again, let's just jump right in. I do have a few, I'm wearing one shirt that indicates where I went, and there's also a hat, which I don't know if you know what that is, but we'll get into that later. This is intricate, right?
I don't know what that is.
So you'll know what it is when I tell you.
Okay.
That way. All right. So where do you want to start? We wanted to talk about a few different things. One was,
well, how was spring break?
So great. Everyone that I told I was doing this thought my wife and I were nuts to try it, but we packed all 4 kids into the car and we drove down to North Carolina. It was great. We had a good time. We spent the first week in Wrightsville Beach, where Ashley and I met, and just stayed at a friend's house on the beach, just the family. And then the second week, we met up with 2 other local families here. It's kind of a tradition now. We meet in the Outer Banks, and we rent this house on the Sound, and the town is Kill Devil Hills. And we just love the Outer Banks. If you've never been there and you have the opportunity, I would highly recommend it. It's just one of those places that probably in 100 years won't be here. Some of the towns won't be here because of erosion. But yeah, so speaking of that, so this is if you can see on the podcast, I don't know, there we go. It is the actual flag of Blackbeard's ship. This was the flag that the pirate Blackbeard flew on their ships. And what he's doing is he's holding what is looks like an hourglass, and then he's got a dagger kind of going towards a heart. And essentially the message is whoever they were attacking, time is short. So
brutal.
My daughter picked it out for me because I had a heart on it. She didn't get the rest. She didn't get the rest of the scary. Yeah. So we'll wait. Maybe when she's in 3rd grade, tell her that one.
Did you go searching for his treasure or anything?
I'd love to. Yeah, I do have the ability and the license to scuba dive, although I haven't done it very much.
Okay.
So we had a great time. We got very lucky with the weather, and for all those unfortunate folks, many of them here in SL, who did have to fly back from Florida when the airport pretty much shut down there. I was, as hard as it was to drive with 4 kids in the car, I was glad to not have to travel by plane because of that. So sorry to the folks that had to put up with that. But I guess that's the risk you take when you go to Florida and airports. So,
but you had pretty good weather.
We did. We had one day, literally the day that we traveled from Wrightsville to the Outer Banks, it rained, which was perfect. And then the next day it was, it looks like, it's going to be 62 and windy, but that doesn't really matter. The place we stay gets sun all day, and it wasn't very windy. And honestly, 62, 65 when you're from the Adirondacks, feels tropical.
That's great. You'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, the last day was like 74. We were like, whoo, I can't do this. I got to get out of the sun.
Yep.
So yeah, we were very lucky and had a great time, and was delighted to come back and have those beautiful days in SL before it got cold again. But we had some nice days here as well.
We did. So you go there quite frequently, like every year or so,
yes,
right?
Once a year, yeah.
Did you try to find new things you haven't done before when you're there? Or
so Kill Devil Hills is the Outer Banks. There's some towns that are very desolate. It's just pretty much just homes, and there's not really maybe like one grocery store and things.
Yeah.
Other areas like Kill Devil Hills have a lot of stuff going on. So we usually, well, the first year we went was COVID had just hit. So we literally, nobody even like went inside gas stations. Everybody was so scared. So we just drove, got to the house. All of us tested ourselves, and we just like locked it down. It's kind of the same thing even last year. This year we ventured out some. So we went to like, I took my kids go-kart racing and bumper cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Go to the beach, but really just try to unplug and try to be outside as much as we can and just unplug and the place we stay in has it's a pool and a hot tub that's like sits next to it, and there's a little like opening that can flow from the hot tub to the pool. So this is inside, but whatever. It's kind of funny. So the pool is heated by the hot tub.
Yes.
It's a saltwater system, really intricate. But they won't turn the system on to overflow the hot tub into the pool until May 1st. So all 3 years we've requested, can you please do this so we can have otherwise the pool's freezing. And they won't do it. But we were sneaky. And the pool guy had to come and fix something this year, and we were able to watch him messing with all the gears, and we figured out how to do it on our own.
There you go.
So hopefully the owners don't see this podcast and go, why is our heating bill more expensive this year? But we figured out how to overflow the hot tub, so the kids were very happy that they had a heated pool, and we didn't break anything.
Good for you. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So you went out of town as well, and
yeah, we went further south to South Carolina.
All right, and you drove.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Which we do regularly, not every year. And the reason we go there is because my sister lives there.
Whereabouts in South Carolina?
Columbia. Right in the middle of the state.
Okay.
And, it could be snowing. It doesn't really snow there, but it doesn't matter what the weather is, just being with family. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could be locked indoors and the cousins would have a great time. I mean, they did. On all our downtime, they're playing Switch and doing whatever. Yeah. And it was fun just for them to be together.
Sure.
So, but we did get out, and I feel like I wish spring break was a little bit later this year. I mean, it varies on when it is, and it seems like Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, if you're at the beginning of April, it's a little bit more touch and go.
You're really risking
on the weather. But if you can push that spring break towards the middle of April, it seems like you're in great shape. So we went a little bit early, a couple of days that were cold. Mm-hmm. I mean, warmer than here, but just barely.
Yeah, there was days where I was like, really? Like it's literally warmer in SL right now.
And then when we came back, it was literally warmer up here.
Yep.
So it was good to come back a little bit early and enjoy the weekend and the warm weather and stuff like that. But we had a good time.
Good. Yeah. So, and you're inland, and the cousins are all similar ages?
Yeah. They're pretty close. And we did get down to the beach, went and searched for alligators, found some,
nice.
Alligators, turtles, the beach. Cold. It was a little bit chilly that day, but still good to get out. We went to a state park on the beach, and there's a lot of beaches in South Carolina, from Myrtle Beach all the way.
Sure.
Just there's a ton of variety. And this was otherworldly compared to other parts of the coast because there's no development on it.
Okay.
So there's this mix of palm trees and pine trees along, as a backdrop to the beach.
Yep.
That was just really remarkable and really nice and really different.
Yeah.
And highly recommend it.
So you're in Columbia.
Yep.
And going to the beach. Yeah. So I haven't spent much time, even though there's a strong North Carolina, South Carolina rivalry. So when I lived in
so you don't go south of the border.
Exactly. You don't even going to Myrtle Beach is like, really, you're going to go to Myrtle?
Yeah.
But I lived in North Carolina for several years and I did go to Myrtle a few times, but didn't venture much further there. But so we, I just loved going to the beach. But it's funny, you mentioned your kids were playing Switch, Nintendo, and so on break is when the Mario Brothers movie came out.
Oh, well, we went and watched that.
You saw it. Okay. Yes. So we did not go because, one of the families who goes, their two sons are really super into video games and Mario. And, but we just kept saying, okay, well, when it's cloudy, which every day was, we'll go. And it never was until finally Friday, the last day of vacation. Really, it was cloudy, so I didn't go. We ended up leaving a day early because we wanted to get back and have that day to stretch. And but the other families, some of them went and enjoyed it, and so their son shout out to Hudson, was and Dax. They were very excited to.
And they liked it? Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
No, it's a good movie. It's fun for everybody.
That's what I imagine, because I grew up playing Mario.
Right.
And I will go to my grave saying that I was the first child under 10 to beat the original Mario on Nintendo in this town. I have witnesses to that effect.
Okay, so shout out to anyone who grew up in the late 80s and beat Super Mario Brothers. Let's I want to hear, and lived in Saranac Lake.
Lived in Saranac Lake.
I want to hear about when you beat it, so we can see if Justin is telling the truth.
I was being babysat at a house that won't be named, with probably about 30 kids and unlicensed daycare, and
so they all saw you. You have many witnesses then.
I had witnesses. I was in the zone on a diet of hot dog chopped up into mac and cheese, and I was just in the zone. And
I mean, I know how it goes. Yeah.
But this is a podcast about SL, and we want to talk
back to Saranac Lake.
So one of the issues that's always been a hot issue around spring break is
before we get to this, I just have to say, when you leave Saranac Lake, which you called the snow globe.
I did, yes.
Right. It doesn't matter where I go. I'm analyzing.
By the way, it snowed 2 days after we had that 70-degree weather here, so it is a snow globe.
Yes. Yeah. I'm always analyzing wherever I'm at. What's the good, the bad, and the ugly about this community? I might be staying in it. I might be driving through. It's just what I do. Mm-hmm. And what always happens is that I can go to any community and see, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that they do that, or boy, that's weird, or that, what is going on there? Saranac Lake's the best, or Saranac Lake could do this better.
Sure. Yep.
So I always enjoy traveling anywhere just for that purpose.
Yep.
But here's the thing. The rest of America is insane. Putting up with the traffic that they put up with.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Yep.
It's like a daily thing, and everyone is just accustomed to it. They learn, they think it's just a natural part of life, and they find it acceptable. And boy,
it really makes you appreciate or laugh at yourself when you complain you're having to sit through maybe one light by the town hall or something.
And it's not, I mean, we're fortunate. I mean, it's not even a Saranac Lake thing. It's a North Country blessing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That it's just not a thing we have to really worry about.
Well, the congestion and the traffic, I'm so obsessed about it that so when we drive south, we don't go down the 95 corridor. We take the old way.
Right.
When you deal with lots of the 18-wheelers, and that adds like an hour and a half to your trip in theory, but you also avoid stopping at 28 tolls and the backups around cities. And
I won't even do it. If we see traffic coming, I'll just get off. And if it's going to take an extra hour, I don't even care, because I'd rather be moving and seeing something new on a back road
100%
than sitting in the parking lot on the interstate.
Yeah, can't stand it. And I've driven through the DC region, at like 10:30 and late on a Tuesday, and it's still bumper to bumper. I'm like, what? Yeah. So anyway. I agree. We are definitely very fortunate to live where we live, in the sense of there is not congestion, and we could do with a little more congestion here, trying to get more people to move here. But that's not go unnoticed.
I had to put a shout out for that.
Definitely makes you appreciate it.
Great, yeah, we do appreciate it.
But I don't want to call it a controversy, but there is a bit of it's a hot button issue. The idea that all of my professional colleagues and all the places I've lived, the spring break is 1 week. It's a 1 week vacation. Usually the school district takes a week off, usually in February, and then a week in April. We don't do that. We do 2
only
weeks.
A couple districts in the entire state that do this.
And there was 1 year we tried here, the splitting of the 2 weeks up, and it did not go over well. And so that's a debatable issue. And where do you stand on that, Jeremy?
There was 1 year when I was on the school board that I saw that it didn't matter what I voted, so I just voted for it.
To keep it at 2 weeks?
Keep it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And every other...
It didn't matter because everyone else was going to vote for it as well?
Right.
Okay.
Every other year, when the calendar came up for approval, I voted against it.
Against the 2 week break. Okay.
Yeah. I voted against the calendar because the calendar included a 2 week break, because I felt bad because I just didn't agree with it. So it's like, why did I vote with it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So after that, I learned my lesson. Like, I don't need to vote for this. Right. I feel that we should have 2 split weeks, one in February, one in April, and whatever it is, and just went with it. And every year I got, it passed.
Sure.
And that's okay, right? Like life moves on. We have a discussion about it. You vote how you want, and then
I mean, there's this idea that being on the school board that I've been on lots of boards and committees, and there's this idea that we all have to be unified all the time, and I think that's not right. If you feel differently about stuff, then you should vote against stuff it doesn't. So
right.
So what are your reasons for why it should be split 1 week?
I have basically put it in two buckets, two reasons. One, I think there's lost opportunity in February.
Okay.
For not having more time to do things other than school as an individual or family. I mean, we live in a place that is celebrated for winter, and people travel here during that time to go to Titus Mountain, to do anything up here. And especially in this day and age when the snow is getting less and less in other places.
Yeah.
And we as a family enjoy that. And there's precious few days that we get to do that with school and winter activities. And so that's the selfish reason. I'd love to have that February week to go to Titus Mountain, to just relax and do other snow related sports and things like that. The more important reason is that I think 2 weeks is too long for kids to be out of school.
Learning loss.
Yep. And while, some kids can rebound and have the advantages that they have, I worry a lot about, especially kids with emotional challenges or learning challenges. And I think it has a larger impact on, it's harder for them to catch back up and things like that. And so, and we have so many families who are not going anywhere and are now trying to figure out, what are we going to do for 2 weeks? Can I take 2 weeks off from school? Most people can't. How am I going to keep my kids engaged and busy, and who's going to watch them? 1 week, everybody kinds of, you can cobble it together. 2 weeks just seems, if you're in that situation, just seems like an awfully long time to cobble it together.
It's a big chunk. And I think those are all valid points. I would agree about the issue of learning loss. But I full disclosure, I'm somebody who thinks that we should go, in this country, we should have school year round with breaks throughout.
And there are places that do that.
And there's plenty of places that do that. There's plenty of nations that do it, plenty of places in the country that do it.
Right.
But because the data is clear, summer learning loss, giving kids 2.5, 3 months off is the worst possible thing you can do in terms of, and the only reason that we do it is the only reason that we have summers off is because it used to be back in the day when on farms, you needed to have kids available to work the farms.
Agricultural heritage. Yeah.
It's an absurd thing to do. I don't think we're ever going to get year-round schooling for a lot of reasons. So I'm with you on the sense of learning loss. I'm with that. And I'm with you on the sense of, there's many kids for whom school is the place that they rely on for meals, that they rely on for safety. There's in our community and others. So, whenever you're in the minority of like, okay, we're in that less than 1% of districts that do it this way, you have to question like, okay, are we, is this the right thing to be doing? I also know that, again, we've tried it in the past year and people flipped out, didn't like it, and because people want to go on, people want to leave. And for those folks who want to leave and go on vacation, I get it. You don't want to just have 7 days. You want to have more time to get away. So really, in my mind, there's no, and this is not me as a school board member saying this, putting that out there. As a parent and as a community member, there is no justifiable reason to do it as 2 weeks, other than we've always done it that way and people like it. And it kind of, so it is controversial. I think the issue of people wanting a longer break, because people say, well, what is there to do in February? Well, as you pointed out, there's lots to do in February if we have the snow, which we always do in February, outdoors. And if you wanted to make an argument for doing a 1 week break in February, I mean, what better we have Winter Carnival. There's like 1 million events going on. And so, yeah, I cannot make a legitimate argument as to why we should keep it at 2 weeks, other than
tradition.
People like it, tradition, and people like it. And and some people don't. But that kind of leads to the other issue of when we have that 2-week break, the kids who are left behind, the families who are left behind, what kind of a burden is that putting on them, and what does it do for the kid? I was talking with some people before I left about some folks in the community were trying to organize events for kids who were going to be here, right, so they could do stuff, they could have something to do. And I was growing up, my family, we didn't always go south. We usually went south, but not always. So I definitely spent time here growing up for those, it's like what is it, like 17, 18 days where you're just nothing to do. And in April, a lot of times, like things like Pisgah have shut down, so a lot of that stuff isn't going on anymore. So it's tricky. And then the school
it's a tough
buildings
in between time.
Yeah. So I know I've been on both sides of it. I absolutely loved being out of town for 12 days. It was definitely a privilege to do it, and I use that word intentionally. But yeah, so I can't make an argument as to why we should keep it at 2 weeks. Besides,
well, so 7 school board members.
No, we're not. That's in school board.
Well, I'm not like this. Separate you from this. Okay. Just the structure we have is that the school calendar is adopted by the school board. And we have a system where that school board is elected by the community members. And their job is to try to balance all sorts of needs and wants from the community. And if the majority feel that the community wants a 2-week break, then that's what they're going to get. And we should celebrate that we have that level of local control and that the system works, even if I personally don't agree with it. I mean, it's a nice system that you have a school board that can be responsive to the local population.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not how it is in many parts of the country.
Every year, the board has to vote, like I said, to adopt the calendar or not, and then anybody that wants to can come to that meeting and have a say in it. So, I honestly can't even say it's one of the very few issues where I don't have strong beliefs either way. I wouldn't care if we went to splitting it. I wouldn't. But I do, as I guess I kind of said before, there's more logical arguments to keeping it split than putting it together. But
the 1 year when I was not on the board when we went to the 1 year and came back to 2, and so we got to hear from a lot of folks on one side or the other who share their thoughts about it. And for those who were very passionate about having a 2-week break, some of them it was incredibly selfish. I mean, a handful. I'm not trying to cast a really incredibly selfish the reasons for it, which I just didn't appreciate. However, there was a lot of people who really liked the 2-week break, and it was all about family and it was all about tradition.
Meaning what?
Because they have this tradition. I mean, it was like great opportunity for parents to just escape with their children away from the distractions of everyday life and work and mud season and all of these other things. And they'd share some of the incredible experiences that they were able to have with their children, learning opportunities and just quality time with them and things like that. And, that there's something to that, right? Like that's legit. I mean, when you have folks who've had those kinds of experiences and then all of a sudden you're cutting that in half, like you can understand the passion and the frustration. Totally get it. And I think that weighed heavily for a lot of people, but I just couldn't get away from thinking about all the families who never have that opportunity to leave for 2 weeks. And like, what about them? So, and that's kind of where you were getting, like, what about them and what are the ideas and things that happen?
Yeah. So I guess if I honestly don't know if somebody came to me and said, you have to vote, what to do for spring. I don't even know where I would vote. I certainly, all the things you just mentioned about family and tradition, I mentioned the tradition that we've already started with our kids where we go, and it's a chance to go to a state where my wife is from. And I spent some time so there's a lot of stuff around that. I think for me, if we're talking about, this is the podcast, a lot of it is about going forward. One thing I would like to see and I'm not saying there's any specific person or body that should be doing this, but if we could figure out more of the organization around what do we do for the children who are in a situation where they're not leaving town, and maybe, and there might be some kids here who don't want to leave, who just take like those 2 weeks of just, maybe they're super into the outdoors and they do a lot of hiking at that time. I don't know, but I do know there are some kids here for whom that 2-week break is not great. And so what could we do as a community? And this gets us into a different topic. We'll get on that road, but hey, it's a great reason to have a Y here. Just going to put that out. So
now I should know the answer to this. The Y doesn't operate the
very
during the 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, it was funny. I was rescheduling a medical appointment. And the person, like the second, they said, what about this day? Like April 7th. I was like, oh, and before I could even finish, they're like, oh, because you're leaving town, right? And I was like, yeah, like, but they weren't like mad, but it was very much like,
so
okay.
We do know that it can be a challenge to get a doctor's appointment scheduled in this community. So here's our pro tip for folks who are recently moving to Saranac Lake.
First 2 weeks of April, you'll be good to
go. You'll be able to get the appointment you need.
Yeah, whatever you want, anytime. Right. So yeah, I think that's one thing I'd like to see us going forward, which is what this podcast is partly about. What can we do to start organizing?
Be more proactive about
activities that kids can do.
Yes, right.
Whether it's whatever it might be, or games, clubs, sports, whatever it is, something that's an organized thing that can be done for kids in the community, with the people who are here. I mean, the people that I was talking to, they were talking to the police, the local police department about, because they're going to be here, about what they could. They had some ideas of things they were going to try to do with some of the kids who were still here, organizing stuff. So.
Well, here's the thing we all know about Saranac Lake, is that if there was a person or an organization or some people that started to get together to try to figure this out, there would be a lot of people that would step up to help make it happen, either by volunteering their time or financially. I would be no doubt about it.
I think both. Yeah. I don't think it's a hard. I mean, it's not easy. But it's if we wanted to do it, and I think we do, and I think that I don't think it's unreasonable to think that it probably will happen soon. I mean, in the few years to come. So yeah, that's where I stand on it. I enjoy the 2-week break. I laid out several reasons why the 2-week break makes no sense, and you made some good reasons why the 1-week breaks split up make a lot of sense. So we certainly sound like we're advocating for the splitting it. I'm not sure where I would vote right now, but that issue of how do we help people who are, I don't want to say left behind, they're not left behind, but people who stay, people who don't leave
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it probably could be something that would be worthwhile, whether it was a 1 week or a 2 week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%, definitely. Especially that April time.
Yes.
It's tricky.
Right.
I mean, because the February time, there's more stuff that open outdoors and things like that. So, all right. Well, I think we covered spring break.
We didn't get into a fight about it. I didn't know where you stood on the matter. So I was looking forward to the discussion, because I would never want all of our listeners to think that we are in lockstep with each other all the time.
No,
I'm always trying to probe and find topics.
Well, we always say before we breaking down the curtain here, we always kind of, before we go live, we're kind of like, all right, what are we talking about? Then we go, let's just do it live. Let's just talk. We know the topic, but then let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's working and making people feel like they're a part of the conversation with us. Because I didn't
make it more authentic.
Where you were. Yeah.
Authenticity.
There it is.
Right.
All right. So in the interest of being authentic, we don't even know what episode number this is.
We've given up.
I think maybe 19.
We've given up. I've given up on.
Yeah.
If you want to try to keep remembering, then great. But I've already gotten it wrong. So,
well, maybe one of our listeners can email us and tell us, or we can just look at our clock. But anyway, we're back. We're doing our best to stick to our once a week as much as we can. We are going to have several episodes coming up soon with guests on various topics, and tell them where they can hear us.
Well, first, there's been people who have come up and said, love the podcast, or so excited you're on Spotify, and like things like that. And I usually say to them, and you'd make a great guest.
Yep, exactly.
And they, no, I don't have anything to say. I have nothing to share. Now, that's not true.
Right.
There's so many interesting people in this town with great stories and who have ideas about, well, they have their experiences about what makes this place amazing, and they have good ideas about moving forward.
Yeah.
So please don't let imposter syndrome prevent you from wanting to be on the Saranac Lake Effect show. If we can sit here and pretend like we're talking about something useful for 20 minutes, we know you can.
Well, exactly. You and I are two people who never had podcasted before. We literally had to figure all this out on the fly, which I'm sure is obvious. And
that's the most obvious thing about this podcast.
So, I mean, there's no one should feel like they have nothing to say, because you probably could say the same thing about myself and Jeremy. Oh, they have nothing to say. Right. But yet we have more people saying they love it and they appreciate what we're doing. So there's not any person who could contact us and say, we want to come on. Even if you are someone that neither Jeremy and I don't know at all, and you might say, hey, this is who I am, want to come on and talk about X. Come on, let's do it.
We'll
get you on the schedule.
Yeah.
So
back to your question. Yeah. Saranac Lake Effect Show at gmail.com. Spotify, Podbean, Google,
Apple
works now.
Yep.
And Apple Podcasts and YouTube.
So we've got it all covered. I mean,
so subscribe.
Yeah.
And whichever platform you like, and we look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Till then.